Hello and welcome back. This is ProTaleDev back with another Dungeon Farm Tycoon game, and what we're going to be looking at is the things that I talked about in the previous episode. I said that if I'd finished the monster attacks in time, that I would actually go and show them off and dedicate a single video to it. That's what I'm going to do now. I have done other things apart from the monster attacks, but I'm just going to dedicate this episode to the monster attacks, and the next one I'll go over the extra things I've done. Let's get straight into it. So I've lined up all of our monsters in a line just so it's a little bit easier, and we can see our players just here. What I'm actually going to do is slowly move our player to each enemy to try and show off their attacks and just kind of talk about how their attacks work. So the first one is very simple. It's our young devil. So young devil that we got here, he's got a fire shield effect going around him, special effects that determine that if you get close to him you will get hurt. So to start off with, I've also got the player selected, and so that you can see the player movement speeds and things, and also the player health. That will show you that I am actually doing damage. So if we quickly move to our young devil, let me zoom out a little bit. You'll see that it moves fairly slow, and you can easily avoid it, but you have to wait until the shield disappears. Once the shield disappears, you can attack it. If I go to him now, you can see that I am taking damage nearby. The shield has just disappeared, and as you can see, I'm not taking damage anymore. And so the player's got to wait to attack the young devil when the shield is gone. Once the shield is gone, you can get as close as you want to it and do damage. So now I could go and hit it, and then run away. That's basically the young devil's attacks. If I quickly go further away, the monsters will return back to their initial spawn point. So the next one to talk about is the Flesh Devil. So the Flesh Devil, as you can see, his attacks are a little bit more difficult to avoid. I might actually change the speed of the orbs. So these are fire orbs that are going around the Flesh Devil. If you get hit by them, you'll take some damage. Unlike this one where you'll take continuous damage depending on how close you are, this one is when you're hit, so it's a collision. So if we go near it, you'll take some damage. Now it does move a little bit too quickly, I'm probably going to change that. But unlike the young devil, this one you don't take damage from actually hitting the monster itself, it's just from the orbs. In order to hit this guy and do damage, you're actually going to have to just avoid the orbs. The next one we have is the Prime Devil. Now the Prime Devil, you just saw his attack then. By the way, these guys do have their own timers and things. I'll show that in a minute because I actually have a special monster attack script. So I'll show how their attacks work in the actual code. But as you can see, that it takes a lot longer for him to attack. This gives you a lot more time to try and get its damage down quickly, but it will have a lot more health. This thing also does... so what it'll do is it'll do one single fireball that's bigger than the other fire that we've seen, and it will have a bit of a higher collision, but it'll actually do more damage if you get hit by it. It also can get shot from any direction, so you've really got to keep moving. If you stood still, as you saw there, it does a tremendous amount of damage. It's almost like 100. Again, the damage that all of these attacks do is actually completely dependent on their level. So earlier we calculate the damages based on the monster's stats, and those damages get transferred to the attack script, and depending on what number monsters are associated with will determine their exact damage that individual ones will do. It does have a shorter range, so you can avoid it if you stay out the way. So the next one is the Masked Goblin. So the Masked Goblin, what he'll do is he'll actually put down traps, as you can see. These are spike traps, and you won't actually take damage from the square that he puts down. You'll actually take damage from the spikes when they come out of the floor. So you have a bit of time to dodge them, but they will blend into the background, so you got to be really aware of them. So what I'll do is I'll move him over here, and you can see that he's putting these spike traps down. He's another one that won't actually take any damage. But you don't know when he'll put a spike trap down, and really the spike traps last quite a while, so these guys, you could get rid of them very quickly, but of course, moving around some of these smaller rooms, eventually you're just going to fill the room with spikes, and it could be quite dangerous. If I just stand here where the spike is, and maybe just look at the animation, you'll see that the spikes do come up. They have a long time before they actually disappear, so these things can be quite dangerous if they build up. If you have multiple of these, you could be in real big trouble. But if you stand on them, you will take damage when the spikes actually come up. It's not a whole lot of damage, But if you have multiple of these around and lots of other enemies, I'm sure that it can become quite a big issue. So that one's the masked goblin. Next is the green slime. So this green slime will put down this patch. By the way, the textures, the sprites behind them are actually just temporary sprites. I might add my own in at some point, but we'll see. What they'll do, what this green slime will do, is it'll put down lots and lots of these patches that will do toxic damage, so poison damage. It'll be toxic to you when you stand on it, but it will actually increase your speed, so you could use this as an advantage to try and get out of situations or to speed past harder enemies. As you can see, yep, he's quite slow, so the patches you can slowly just lead them in. And if you do just run onto them, you'll notice immediately, if you look on my player movement script at the right, if I go onto him, it'll actually change to speed 4. Oh, I believe our player just died. I do have my player enabled just so I could show all this off, but obviously if I didn't have a dungeon, I wasn't in a dungeon, the player wouldn't actually be enabled, so his hunger and thirst wouldn't be dropping. Let me just get back to where we were, and I'll show that again. So yeah, when we're moving over, if you go over him, oh dear. If you go over him, at the moment our player speed is 3, which I actually think is a little too high. I'm planning on changing that a little bit. When you actually go on the slime, it actually changes to 4. When you come off, it does go back to 3. Also, the damage is maybe a little bit too high. I think it's because he's so high level. Again, needs some testing, some balancing. I have done a lot of testing for this game, but there's still a lot more to go, especially with the attacks. So next is the mud. The sludge monster. So this guy is actually very, very similar to the slime, the green slime. He'll put down these patches down, but the opposite will happen. So you'll actually get slower, you'll take damage from it, and you'll actually be a lot slower. As you can see, the damage is a lot. I believe these patches last longer as well, but they probably won't do as much damage as the toxic. I might even disable damage altogether and make it so that these guys just slow you down. I'm not 100% sure because I think that could be exploited. Next is the Orca Scout. So the Ark Scout is a little bit different. So the way the Orc Scout's going to work is, compared to all the other enemies, this guy will actually just run up to you. His kind of attack is his burst sprint. So just like any kind of you would expect from a scout, he's really quick. What he'll do is he'll actually be very, very slow and then he'll just speed up. And he'll be one of the more faster monsters. But again, it only lasts for about 3 seconds, I think, the speed run, the sprint, and then for about 5 seconds-ish, he should slow down. So that one's more of a simpler aspect. When he hits you, you will take damage. Next, we have the Orc Shaman. Now the Shaman's actually going to be a supportive monster, so what he's going to do is he's actually going to heal other monsters. Yeah, what we're going to do is we're actually going to lower the health of our Orc Scout, bring it a little bit down so that it's actually taken damage. There we go. And then what we're going to do is going to get our Orc Shaman and we're going to bring our Orc Scout to him. Now he'll actually start, you can actually see it better on the right, but if you're in range, he'll actually start healing the closest monster that has not got full health. So these guys are going to be very, very dangerous in the dungeons. However, they're going to drop quite a lot of gold, so getting rid of these are going to be very, very important. I'm going to talk in the next video about this, but I'm actually going to change how the dungeon spawns monsters a little bit with how you spawn things, by making the spawning a bit more variety of monsters along with the main monster you've chosen. So what we're going to do, but I'll go into that in more detail in the next video. So as you can see, it creates a green line that goes to our monster. And this happens with any monster. I just use this one as an example. But yeah, once they're close to it, they'll start healing. They do have a timer as well, so they won't do it continuously. And that is really the time for you to take advantage, is when these timers all run out. The next one we're going to look at is this guy. So this guy is the troll plant. or the plant troll, whichever way you want to look at it, is really strong. He has a ton of health. He's really high level, this guy. But this guy, what he'll do is he'll actually do a like plant slam. There's no animation yet apart from this circle, this damage circle to avoid, which is another thing I've added to them with all these little bits of extra animation, mainly because I need players to be able to see the AoEs better. And what this guy does is he just does a simple plant slam. I don't know what the animation is going to look like yet, but essentially all you do is avoid this big area. It'll do like that little vibration, that wiggle, and that means you're going to be taking damage. Once then it'll close, and you got to wait for it to do another slam. So all you got to do is avoid this area. If you're in that area, you will take a ton of damage, just like the fireball. You'll do a tremendous. These guys will do a tremendous amount of damage, and if their level is as high as this is pretty much an insta kill. So this could be really devastating. The levels are of course based on the dungeon's number, their state of what has been created, so small, medium, large. Of course, these guys have just been spawned in, so they have no default, so they're just probably spawned into any number that all the way up to probably 500. But if this was inside the dungeons, their health would be obviously limited based on that level. So they won't do as much damage. It may not be an insta-kill, but it will do a lot of damage anyway. So the next one is the water drop monster. This was one of the early ones. I think I showed this in a previous video briefly, but now we have it works a little bit differently. Before, you would actually take damage from the geyser directly. Now you actually take damage from the AoEs on the floor after the geyser, so it's not actually the geysers that are hurting you, but rather the splash area, the water itself. So what this guy does is he'll just place them all the way around. The circles are there again as an indicator. Before, I found that the geysers were just too difficult to predict. It was so difficult for players to be able to avoid any of these geysers and getting hit, that it just was really frustrating when I was testing it. So I decided that instead of the geysers, these circles would appear shortly after. At least then you have a little bit of time to get out. You won't take that much damage, and they do fade a little bit over time, and with that the collision also fades, so it doesn't just stay there. It's the same with the slam as well. The collision actually just fades with it and shapes based on the size. So that is the water drop. So next is the stone golem. So the stone golem will actually spawn sentries. So these sentries are little mini versions of these monsters, essentially, that are just adds, spawns that will go and chase the player around. So if I just quickly show you, what these guys will do is they'll just slowly chase the player, and these guys will continuously spawn from the stone golem. They will get destroyed when they hit you, but you'll also take damage. It's not that much damage, but of course, when there's other attacks going on, it can get overwhelming. These guys will move, but they're very slow, and you can get out of their range really quickly. These guys are really for defending certain areas that you want, like areas to be defended. That's exactly what they are. Stone golems and the sentries that they spawn are just for defending that area. Again, it's different because these guys will just continuously spawn, and you cannot kill these. These will carry on chasing you until you get out of range. They're very quick, and so it's very important to notice the stone golem immediately and try and maybe avoid him or get rid of him very quickly as well. So next is the thin bone. What the thin bone does is he actually spawns ignore. I'm still a little bit enraged. Let me move just a bit up. What this guy will do is he'll actually just spawn these bone-like, again, no texture, no sprites at the moment, but he'll spawn these bone things that come out of the ground. If you get hit by them, you'll take a ton of damage, but they're relatively slow, and you can see the pattern. They will just go out from the left and right, and it is actually quite wide, but you can avoid it. Again, this could be very dangerous if you're in a situation where you've got a smaller room, and these guys, again, even though you can move, you can actually avoid it. This can really push you into the corners, and that's kind of what it's there for, is to try and be an obstacle. Apart from that, the thin bone really doesn't have much defenses. It's meant to be there again to just to make you lose space. Next is the walking skull. The Walking Skull is another supportive monster. What this guy will actually do is he will debuff the player's damage. He's also very, very quick, so he's going to be hard to get rid of, but he will be relatively weak. He won't do damage himself. He won't be as quick as the Orc Scout. He's just really quick at the moment because I haven't gotten around to really testing him yet. But you'll also see this line that's going around. Again, it's not finished completely, but it does work. When you're hit by that line, that yellow line, what will happen is that your damage will completely be modified and lowered to lose about maybe 15 to 25% damage. That can be very, very huge, especially if you're taking things like potions and stuff. I mean, if you're having a potion that should increase your damage all the way up to, say, let's just throw out a number of maybe 500% more damage. If you get something like this where it's 20% less damage and you're trying to maybe fight something that's really, really difficult, you know, that 20% can make a huge difference in a fight. If he does get in, does see you, he's very, very fast at the moment. He is going to be a lot slower, so you should be able to get out the way. He will return back to where he came from. Next is the Ark Fighter. Now, we've only got these two left. So this is the Ark Fighter. This guy has an interesting ability, which is to knock you back. So what you'll do is he'll immediately hit you. I'm going to have to quickly restart because we're actually not in any dungeons, so he can't get knocked back into anything at the moment. If I had my controls active and if I had the dungeon everywhere, you would actually be knocked back into walls and then stop. With your controls, you can, once the timer on the knockback is deactivated for its durability of how long you get knocked back for, you can then move around and it will disable the knockback. At the moment though, that's not active because you're not inside a dungeon and a lot of the player's settings have been disabled. What this Ark Fighter will do is he'll knock you back in any direction. Specifically when you touch him. So this guy is going to be really, really interesting to fight. Again, his knockback only happens once and he has a cooldown. So once he hits you, you then have to continuously attack. However, this could be really devastating in other parts of the dungeon where there may be lava or other kind of obstacles and monsters. So this guy could be a real big issue. Again, he doesn't do that much damage, if any. He's just there to kind of push you around. I think I will have him do damage because, again, otherwise it'll be an exploit where you could just keep killing the same one and he won't take any damage. So the next one I'm going to talk about is this guy. So this Dark Mage, one of the most interesting animations for attacks. Spent a little bit more work on his attack specifically, but he'll do these energy balls, these dark energy balls. Or dark bolts, which I've called them. And what they'll do is, just like the fire, if they hit you, you'll take tons of damage, but they only go in one direction, so you can avoid them. Of course, they're quite large, so you really do have to be careful. When they hit you, though, you will take a ton of damage. So there you go. So that's all of the attacks so far. Quite a lot of monsters there. Now let's go into the script. So the script is called Monster Attacks, and the way it looks in the actual in the game itself is basically you have all of these different prefabs that I've created, which are the effects, the actual area of effect and the collisions, all saved in their own prefab, just connected straight onto here. We have all of them have the same control for a maximum amount of effect timer and also the current timer, and they all have their own different values. So if I click on something like over here, the Skullwalker has 20 seconds before hitting 0, while this guy only has 15. This guy has 10, and this means that their effect will happen obviously more commonly. But within the script, there are a lot of occasions where it's determined by half of a timer. What I mean by that is if you got something for 10 seconds, then the 5 seconds something might be active and 5 seconds it might not. This is done in, for example, in the Young Devil attack, where we have our timers constantly going down. When it hits 0, it gets reset. And then we have our prefabs. We check to make sure it's not null. And then what we'll do is, if the seconds are above 5, then within the 10-second timer, then it'll do this effect. If not, it'll do the opposite. In this case, it's deactivating and activating our shield that we spawned in at the very start of the whole thing. The structure of pretty much all the attacks is done in the same way. It's a timer. Whether it hits 0 or based on a specific moment within the timer, it'll activate a specific part of the attack. This does this all the way through. There are slight differences with what effects they do, so whether they do hunger damage and speed. That was the other thing, is that I didn't quite mention that, is in the mud. The sludge monster will put down the mud patches, and it also actually drains your hunger as well. That was something I forgot to mention. But what they'll do is there'll be a specific timer on all of these, and these attacks also in the prefab. Let's quickly just go into, let's turn this off. Let's go into, I don't know, this guy. You'll actually be able to see that they all have their effects now as well, their death effects. It's been the size has also been lowered to be more correct. But as you can see in here, there's actually no effects, no prefabs in the actual monster themselves. They actually just do get spawned in and get attached to these as their parent, or they get as their child, I mean. And so you don't have to worry about them, they're always with the monsters themselves. Ultimately, the script isn't that complex. The only difference in our script is really we also have a find aspect to find all the monsters with the specific tag, and what this will do is this is really for the Shaman, and maybe any future monsters if I do any more. And then we have this one, a trigger, which is detecting a specific when the player and if the monster is specifically number 11, which is the Ark Fighter, who does a knockback ability. And if we collide with the player, then it'll activate a knockback that is inside of our player movement script. If we go into our player movement script, you can see it here. It's just timed through here. We determined our knockback duration, which I mentioned before, determines how far you'll get pushed back before you get your controls again, and you can move around. And you've also got the power, so how fast it goes. And then based on that timing, we add force to in whatever direction they're going, in the opposite to our player. So that is the monster attacks. A little bit long, but it is everything that we need to look at. In the next video, we'll be looking at some of the minor changes I've made and big changes I've made, some of the balancing, and kind of looking at where we are now. Because like I mentioned last video on the video before, I want to start finishing this to a degree, and so I think we're in a good position now to try and get that done. So this has been ProTaleDev, and I'll see you next time.